Hi, I'm Kelly Hewitt with Oil in My Lamp Ministries. Today I want to answer a question. Has the older generation failed us when it comes to mentoring? Most young women I talk to are hungry for a mentor. We're ready. Maybe you are too. We read those verses in Titus 2:3-5 about older women teaching the younger women to love their husbands and their children, and we think, wow, that's exactly what I need in my life right now. But often it feels like these mentoring connections aren't happening in our churches, in our homes, in our communities. I've even heard younger women say that the older generation has failed us in this area. Today I want to offer a different way to look at mentoring. Take this quilt, for example. It is a multicolored patterned work of art made up of many smaller pieces. Rather than seeing mentoring as one big relationship that changes everything, we need to look at mentoring connections like this quilt. Each interaction with a mentor adds a piece to the quilt. And if we can piece together all of the wisdom and advice that we glean from the many mentors God provides in our lives, we'll end up with a useful and beautiful piece of art. Today, I'm offering you 5 suggestions for creating mentoring environments in your life. Gleaning wisdom from the women in our lives, the women that God places in our lives, starts with us being intentional about creating the environments in which those could happen. Older women aren't going to approach you and just start shooting you with rapid fire advice. Can you imagine what your own response would be if they did that? I have found that many older women are eager to share, but they've got to be invited into our lives intentionally. It's time to stop laying the burden at their feet and take some responsibility upon ourselves for our own growth. We can whine all day that the older generation has failed, or we can create the fertile soil for these mentoring moments to happen, and God will bless our efforts to grow into women and mothers that please Him. Start by praying for opportunities to be mentored and for an open and humble heart. Growth only comes in fertile soil, and that means we need to have a humble mindset. We can learn to listen for that nugget of truth, even in a sea of outdated advice. Pray you're ready to be mentored when it happens. Number 2, make simple connections with potential mentors. Connection is the key word here. Mentoring connections don't look like an interview or a lecture on a certain subject. They're born of casual conversations that often yield those quilt pieces that you can put together when you create these interactions. So, for example, call an older woman just to chat. Invite yourself over to her house and bring coffee and treats. I've never been turned away yet when I offer to bring coffee and treats and I come for a chat time. Seek out older women at church functions or social things to build trust and friendship. Those aren't going to be relationships that maybe rock your world or change everything, but they're pieces of the quilt that you build. Number 3, once a relationship is established, ask good questions. Come prepared to your mentoring thing, whether it's coffee with someone or a conversation on the phone. Come prepared with your questions. Be ready to ask really good questions. Start with easy ones, I suggest, and build up to hard questions. But know this, I've never met a wise woman who would not answer my questions, even the ones that are very personal or emotional. Number 4, listen and journal. It's going to take some practice to really listen. This is a hard one for me. I am a talker. I'm a words person, and listening is a secondary skill for me. Mentoring isn't a cut and dried relationship, but it's often a surprise to me when a beautiful quilt piece kind of falls into the conversation. And if I'm not listening carefully, I may miss it. Add these quilt pieces that you glean over time to your journal. Do it in your phone or a special notebook and just jot down the advice, the takeaway, the nugget that you got from that conversation. Sometimes it applies to today, to what you need this minute. Other times it's going to apply to you down the road. And number 5, take time to pray for the women that you've chosen to add pieces to your mentoring quilt. Pray for their lives and their husbands and their problems. And then this is key, ask them to pray for you too. 2 things to remember about mentoring. Number 1, it's not always one relationship that changes everything. It's a patchwork of different interactions that make that quilt of wisdom. Number 2, it's intentional connections that make mentoring opportunities, and it starts with us. And it ends in relationships that bring value to other people. God promises to give wisdom to those who ask for it. He will provide opportunities to add to your quilt when you dedicate a tiny bit of time and energy toward making these connections. You can start creating a quilt of wisdom with the women in your life. Keep in mind that some of these women aren't going to share holidays with you or become your best friend or babysit your kids or write you into their will. But fostering relationships and making those connections with older women is how we create an environment where mentoring is likely to happen. Have they failed us when it comes to mentoring? I don't think so. I think in many ways we've not taken responsibility for creating the environment for that to happen. We've got to stop waiting around for some sage old woman to come and tell us how to love our husbands and children. It's time we, the younger women in this equation, took matters into our own hands. Remember to think of mentoring as a beautiful quilt formed from the many colorful interactions that you'll have with the women in your life.